Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meet. This is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's eroscoaching.com. Today, I have with me a very special guest, and I have been looking forward to having her on the show for quite some time. We are talking about getting the kinks out, and we are doing an erotic exploration with Minax. She will be discussing with us the importance of recognizing and validating a plethora of sexual desires in order to become a more well-rounded person. She feels that BDSM is a great place for personal growth and reclamation for self. Eve also believes that kink or BDSM can be considered more of an exploratory path rather than an oppositional one to normalized sexual practices. She will be discussing on today's show her work in terms of sexual psychic waste management. What's that? As well as helping people find ways of integrating more connection, play, and intimacy in their lives. So a little bit more about Eve. She has been dubbed the approachable pervert by her peers, kink educator, and sexual empowerment coach. Eve Minax demystifies BDSM by showing erotic explorers how to be more confident, compassionate, kick-ass kinksters. She has been acting as the lead staff instructor for the Cleo de Bois Academy of SM Arts since 2002. Minax further exercises her pedagogical skills at a plethora of conferences nationwide and is currently on the board of Karas and Tashra. So Karas stands for Community Academic Consortium for Research on Advanced Sexualities, and Tashra stands for the Alternative Sexualities Health Research Alliance. She is also a certified urban tantrika and bondage practitioner, trainer, and author. You can find out more about Eve Minax by going to eveminax.com. That's Minax, one word, eveminax.com, as well as www.mistressminax.com and sm-arts.com. So welcome to the show, Eve.
Thank you, Martha. That was quite a mouthful. Congratulations. I know we spoke briefly before the show to clarify the pronunciation of my name, and I don't want to be rude, but it is Minax.
Minax.
Yeah. Is that all right?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I always get pronunciation wrong.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah. So thanks for clarifying that. So something very interesting about the description of this show today, you talked about sexual psychic waste management. Can you tell me what that means and what way you see that as?
Sure. I actually wrote a piece on it that is in a book edited by Lee Harrington. I'm not sure if you've ever had Lee on your show.
Yeah, 3 times. He's famous.
Okay, right. Well, then that makes sense. That book is called Spirit of Desire, and it's a compilation of books or of pieces about where spirituality and kink merge. And I had been thinking about this for many, many years, about how cleansing the process of activating a person's repression in a live scenario helps open them up and sort of kind of pull out all that debris, all of that extra garbage and junk that gets pushed inside of them when they're not able to exercise it more freely. Mm. And I had noted that with people that I practiced with, I noticed, they would come in and there'd be sort of this gloom around them, surrounding them. And we would do our work together. And afterwards, they were just super shiny. It's as if they had had the weight of the world lifted from their shoulders. And so I started thinking about what was happening there, because it wasn't like I had a preconceived notion of, I'm going to be, the sexual psychic waste manager, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to do these things, and these people are going to have these things happen, and this is how it's going to happen. It was more so of an organic process for me. And it was a very powerful process. Not to mention that I my own changes. I mean, what brought me into kink and S&M in the first place was my own personal development around this higher self, if you will, when in practice, finding, sort of losing the ego, losing oneself into the practice, and becoming at one, if you will, with the universe. So for me, that's a very spiritual place to be at one with the universe. I don't know if that's too esoteric of a response, but basically what I'm saying is there's this space in the practice where you have total power exchange, and everyone's getting an opportunity to really, really, really focus on not being themselves, but being fully themselves at the same time, which is a spiritual practice.
Yeah, this show, Eros Evolution, explores the link between sexuality and spirituality. Is also based on OMTimes radio network, which is actually, they have this holistic magazine as well. So this is the perfect audience to be talking about spirituality. So I appreciate what you're sharing about waste management. And I get the concept now, because it's all about pulling out the debris inside us. And from being dull, you become super shiny. I get how that can be really, really powerful, as well as spiritual for some people. Or is that for all people in your experience?
I think for both. Most scenarios are two people, right? Most situations in the practice are two people. So I'll focus mostly on that, but that's just for lack of better terms. I mean, I think that even if there are 2 or 3 or 4 people playing together and sessioning and working together, that it can work for everyone. But I think a lot of times we focus a lot on what we call the bottom or the submissive in a scene, and they, it's all about their happiness. But it works both ways. The dominant also gets to step into a role that they may not be able to step into on a daily basis. If you have the opportunity to really be an incredibly, say, strict or perverted, whatever adjective that normally we associate with being unhealthy or unattractive, but you can step into that role, and then you can practice being in that role with the other person, and you can have this energy flow that occurs between you. And if you were not to step into that role, you couldn't take your bottom, you couldn't take your submissive to that place of sort of dumping their debris. So it's definitely a two-way street, because you get to also exercise some of your facilities with exercise, with exposing your debris, as it were. If I go around and I'm a fairly type A personality, or a fairly bossy personality, one might say, but I can't just walk around every day and with everyone in the world going, stop that, do this, do that. So I get to hone in on those skills and those desires in that moment in an erotic fashion. So it's also about tapping into the libido, which is a very spiritual place. I mean, all of your chakras each one involves a certain aspect to your body and to your person, and your sexual chakra should not be neglected.
Great. Can you repeat the expression you used just now? Tapping into your libido.
Well, not sure exactly what I said. Tapping into your libido.
Tapping into your libido.
So
see, I get it now.
Mm-hmm. So the classic term around libido is, some people say, a workaholic. They're just utilizing their libido. A lot of people they focus on other things besides their sexuality. But psychologists argue often, not all psychologists, but many often argue that they're utilizing that libidinal force to focus on other things. And I like to be very intentional and conscientious around tapping into that libido. Like, I am now going to focus on my libido as a means for cultivating my spirituality, my sexuality, my personal growth. Or I don't even know if I want to put a "my" next to that. Just what's contained within me. Yeah, I know it sounds a little bit heady, so maybe it's a little too heavy. But the bottom line is, if we're repressed in society, if we're not able to actually practice what we yearn for, and we all yearn sexually on some level. Even an asexual person is not non-sexual. Asexual just means that they're not overtly sexually focused, but that's still a placement of sexuality, and they yearn to be understood. They yearn to not be forced to have sex when they do not wish to have sex, or think about sex when they don't wish to think about sex. So I think that sex and sexuality is under constant sort of scrutiny. Are we getting to commercial?
Yeah. So okay. we have a break, and we'll be back with Eve very shortly.
Thank you.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Hey ladies, do you want to have that good hair day feeling all the time? Gentlemen, would you want your special someone to have that glow, letting you know she's feeling completely satisfied? This feeling and that glow can be yours by embracing your sexual power. So join me, Rachel Kenley, award-winning romance author, on the O-Spot. The O-Spot will guide you to that peak with guest interviews, book discussions, and conversations on the thrills of sexual empowerment. Put the zing back in your life. Come up and see me sometime on the O-Spot, live on Hump Day at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, and today we are talking about getting your kinks out, and we are doing an erotic exploration with Eve Minax, and we have been talking about psychic waste management just now, and it's a really amazing, interesting concept for me because it's about pulling out the debris inside of us, and through that become super shiny. In order to get to that place of being able to pull out this debris, you need to be with somebody who is able to take you there. And we were just beginning to talk about the importance of how we can step into these roles so that we can actually practice what we yearn for. And in so doing, we become whole people. And that's very important. So BDSM is also quite spiritual, and Eve is talking to us all about it. And she is highly experienced. She's the lead instructor at Cleo Dubois' Academy of SM Arts. And if you know anything about BDSM at all, this academy is actually very well known for its quality training. So to be the lead instructor, we really have someone quite famous and cutting edge here on today's show. So I'm very grateful that Eve is here with us. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and when you realized you were kinky.
Okay. The kinky part, I think you said it in your introduction because I'm starting to discuss that a little bit more in my practice. I feel as though the term kink or kinky is one that could use a little bit more understanding or deconstruction. And sometimes people say, oh, I'm not kinky. Oh, and then, or they say the opposite. The typical antonym to kinky is vanilla. And I personally feel as though, we're all flavors of the rainbow, just like we're just as diverse as far as ethnicities and backgrounds go in our worlds. And I think that sometimes when we use the term kinky, once again, societally, people get a little nervous. They're like, ooh, kinky, I'm not that. I just like to be spanked and have my hair pulled while having sex. And so then it becomes splitting hairs around what is kinky and what is not kinky. And so what I've tried to start to practice is more so the idea of being a sexual explorer. Mm. Do you like to explore? Mm. And what are your motivations for that exploration? Are they purely physical, sensation play? Are you interested in different sensations in your body and you really just enjoy having these variety of sensations, or just a few sensations, or just a couple of sensations, but those are the sensations you want? Is it a psychological journey for you? Do you really enjoy how different sensations and different structures sexually help lead you to different places in your body and your mind? Is it some combination thereof? So there's the intention, and then there's the exploration. And just like anybody in this world, some people have never left the country of the United States, which is where I'm currently located in San Francisco, California. Some people don't even have a passport. But maybe some of those people also go away every weekend, and every weekend they go to a different location in their surrounding area. So they're getting some sense of a journey, but they're not getting, the bigger picture. And then other people want to travel all over the world, and on and on and on. So basically what I'm trying to say is that, to me, if we can look at kink as a sexual exploration, some people really want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, right? and go to the depths of the Pacific to see the most exotic fish there are. And others are perfectly happy getting in their camper van, traveling around. And others are just happy to stay home and knit and play with their dogs and what have you. And all of those are perfectly valid and beautiful choices. And they also exemplify where we're at when we're sexually exploring. So using the term kink, I feel, is a little tricky because if I say I'm kinky, then it automatically can put you in a position of, well, you're not kinky. Or you're not kinky enough.
Yeah.
You know. So we're all journeyers, we're all explorers. But where are you on your exploration? How did you find out about for me, I've always been a very adventuresome person. I grew up very poor in the United States, which is odd. Many people, especially within education, later in life, people assume that I grew up, of a certain class, but I did not. I grew up very poor with a single mother and a very difficult childhood. But even as a child, in this difficult childhood, I was always curious, infinitely curious about everything. And I hope this is okay to confess on your show, I am a sexual abuse survivor. And part of being a survivor in that vein, there are many different avenues, different paths I could have followed. And, they could all have led me to the same place. Let's not get that wrong. But I've never really been one to feel victimized or to feel as though my experience is going to impede or stop me from growing. And so I've worked very, very hard over the years. And I used to have some guilt around my sexuality. Like, oh, maybe my sexual abuse has affected my sexual interests. And then I read Dorothy Allison. I've read many, many, many people, but Dorothy Allison was really the one who hit home for me. If you're not familiar with her work, she wrote a fantastic book many years ago, about 20 years ago now, called Bastard Out of Carolina. And it really embodies sort of the background kind of where I came from, sort of more southern, more country, poor white Americans who live a very difficult life. And but it's an autobiographical story, and she comes out as being a sexual being in this book. And when I remember reading this book, and I finished reading, and I was just crying, I was just sobbing. And I thought to myself, well, then I can be a sexual being. I don't have to feel guilty for being sexual, even though I have this difficult background. Do you see what I mean? Because most people want to say, you had this background, now you should be a nun. you should be in the church. You should be wearing, dresses up to your neck and be, or you should be a dominatrix beating people for being, sexually perverse, which has its own, connotations around that. And so that's.
I just want to say,
go ahead.
I'm proud of you. That you decided to work on your sexuality instead of shutting it down, which a lot of people who have gone through difficult, traumatic past, they would tend to do that.
Yes, and thank you, and I certainly don't want to devalue other people's choices. It was just very important for me. I tried. Trust me, Martha, I did try. I tried to shut everything down. I tried to shut everything off. I tried, and it wouldn't go. It was like, hey, listen, check it out. We're still here. We've got things. We've got memories. We've got things bumping up against your mind and your psyche. Talk about psyche. That psychic waste management that we're constantly bumping up against. No matter how smooth our childhood was, no matter how easy our movements into puberty and sexuality, adult life, there's always going to be baggage because we live in a world that we're surrounded by society, and society, creates mores, whether they're discussed or not discussed. There's sexual mores and structures, and especially in the United States, where we just love to talk about sex as if we know everything about sex there ever was to discuss. We don't really practice a very thorough and mindful practice around what our sexuality means to us and to each other, and how we can find growth within that and healing. A lot of healing can go on in sexual contexts. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Definitely.
You asked. Oh, good.
So yeah, please continue. And then you read the book, and then you were in touch with your sexuality, And then...
Well, I had always been, like I said, a sexual explorer. I had been tying down my lovers. I also, I'm a sexual explorer in the way I have never been solely identified with men or women. And as gender fluidity has grown, I've never been, specific to any gender. As far as my attraction goes, I'm attracted to personality and to energy. And I find that the new terminology, I don't know if you've spoken much on your show about some of the newer terminologies that have been emerging, but I find them all very exciting. A lot of people are making fun. I was like, oh, we need a new word for this and another word for that and da-da-da. But I say, yeah, why not? Because I never felt comfortable saying bisexual because I didn't believe in only two genders. So, scoliosexual works really well for me, for example. That is one off the top of my head. And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to have some heart connection in order to really feel that sexual drive for the other person. So, yeah, in sum, I've always been a very adventuresome person. And then also got shamed a little bit around that, especially as a woman. Got a little bit of shame around that. And because I grew up, possibly because of the tough childhood, I was able to just flick it off my back, let water roll off my back. Okay, fine. You don't like it? You can go. This is who I am. This is what I like. Not so easy, but it's a part of how I've proceeded in my life. Mm-hmm. Does that help too, or no?
Yeah, great. So you started off being curious, and then you experimented with tying down your lovers. And I
never thought in a million years I would ever. I mean, I didn't even back in my day. We're not going to say my age, Martha. Come on. No, I have no problem with my age. I'm actually 50 years old this year. I'm very excited. But no, I didn't think I would be a dominatrix or anything else. I was the first person in my family to graduate high school and then went on to college and got a master's degree. But I was always taking classes in sexuality. But they didn't have sexuality degrees back then.
Yeah, I know. Okay, very interesting. Let's continue after this break.
Great.
And we are with Eve Minax, and you can check out her by going to her website, minax.com.
Thank you.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You are listening to OMTimes Radio. You are listening to Eros Evolution on the OMTimes Radio Network, and you can share this show by sending your friends this link, omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, your friends will be able to listen to the show without needing to download any app. It's really cool. We are with Eve Minax, and we are talking about getting the kinks out. Just before the break, we were beginning to talk about her personal journey and how she came into identifying herself as a sexual explorer, and she encourages us to use that term because kink by itself really can sometimes make the other person that you're having the conversation with feel bad. And it's less about labels, it's more about giving ourselves permission to know that we are all on the journey of learning and being comfortable with our sexuality and exploring who we are. So she's sharing with us very real things about how she tried to and didn't, and fortunately didn't, shut down her sexuality. So Eve, could you continue with your story and telling us like how you came into becoming a dominatrix?
Sure. And that was a lovely synopsis, Martha. Thank you.
I tried. Thanks.
Basically where I left off was, being the sexual explorer and also having this childhood that was very difficult, and being then the first person in my family to graduate high school, it was very important for me to get a higher education. And so I was really focused on getting a higher education and becoming a professor at the university, something that I felt was very noble because I love teaching. Teaching is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. Exchanging ideas. Once again, to me, teaching is not about me telling you A, B, C, and D. It's about me telling you A, B, C, and D, and then hearing your ideas back. And so it's an exchange. I think that students teach their teachers almost as much, maybe if not more sometimes. So there's a constant interplay around exchange. And in my life, I think there's a constant interplay around exchange and also collaboration. Collaborative exchange is invaluable work to me. Mm-hmm. So that's what took me then on a journey to becoming a dominatrix, interestingly enough, was because I was doing this self-exploration on the side around kink and S&M. I was finding that that there were words, the internet started to come out. I remember the first thing was actually an article in the New Yorker magazine, and I read about a dominatrix, and in the article she said that she was not at all interested in these practices in her private life, that she did it solely for money. And I remember reading this and thinking to myself, oh, I could do that so well, and I wouldn't do it just for the money. I would do it for the love of the work, Mm-hmm. But I had no idea, how to go about doing that. And I continued graduate school and continued my explorations, and like I said, I really did try to study more about sexuality and various formats, although we didn't really have that programming back then. And long story short, the more I explored, the more deeply moved I felt on how S&M helped me to recover from a lot of that childhood sexual abuse that I had, and help others begin to recover from their own societal abuses, if you will, or trauma around sexuality. It's just a given that you're going to have some kind of either soft or hard or combination thereof trauma around sexuality. Think of the poor person who gets caught masturbating by their mother at the age of 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. That definitely forms the adult later on in life. So then I lived in France, I lived in Australia. So I got slightly different viewpoints, different places in the world around, kink and S&M. That was also very enlightening. And I ended up moving back to the United States, and it was around 9/11. And I'll be honest, I was looking for work as an editor or a writer or something. And, there wasn't much work to be had, and I was still practicing my S&M. And I met another professional dominatrix, and she and I began working together and collaborating. And that was the beginning of the end, as it were, because the work was so powerful and so meaningful to me. And it felt like it was a calling. It felt like it became a calling for me. Like, oh, this other thing you thought you should do is not what you should be doing. You need to be doing this. So I really started focusing on professional domination around 2001, I want to say. And then in 2002, this was prior to Google. I was doing a search for kink and spirituality and S&M and this web page, it was a very old computer. At the time, it was normal, but you're sitting there, you're waiting for the page to load, and you can see there's a little spot here, a little spot there, and finally this page rolls up, and there's this woman, and it was Cleo Dubois. And I wrote Cleo. I was living in Chicago at the time. She was in San Francisco or the Bay Area. And I wrote her, and she was very, very kind. I, to be honest, I wrote 5 or 6 different professionals from around the world and asked if they were interested in mentoring me. And no one responded except for Cleo. And unfortunately, she said no. But it started our relationship. And I ended up meeting her personally when I came out to San Francisco. I took a mummification class of hers, and one thing led to another. I took a piercing ritual class in Minneapolis with her, and we became more collegial and friendly, let's say, over time. And I took the very, very first Cleo Dubois Academy of SM Arts Erotic Dominance Intensive. It was for professionals in 2002. So I attended as a student when she and Sybil Holiday, the great, wonderful Sybil Holiday, combined their genius to create the first academy of its kind, and only of its kind to this date. And then they invited me out, and I would come out to San Francisco to assist them. And then Sybil had to step down for health reasons, and I was asked to bring in what I could bring in to that course. So I've been working side by side with Cleo since Sybil stepped down, which I want to say is around 2004. And in addition to that, I mean, because I'm just constantly interested, like I said, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm infinitely curious. So some people go into sexuality, starting out with Tantra and sacred sexuality and what have you, and then maybe move into kink and S&M and other aspects later on. And I sort of feel like I jumped in kind of head first into the PhD program, and then, kind of started exploring the other aspects. So I had always felt that Tantra was the basis of my work. And I wasn't sure about it except for everything that I read about Tantra. I read lots of books, and I said, well, this is what I practice already. And I would even read exercises and practice more exercises. And I really felt like the breath work and the containment and the holding and the journey and not predicting the journey, it was all very tantric-like, and how I pretty much practiced my life, but particularly my work life. And then the wonderful Barbara Carrellis came into my view, and she is the creator of Urban Tantra. I don't know if you've had her on your program, but if you haven't, she's you have had.
I've been trying. She's also one of my teachers. I also took Urban Tantra.
Great. Oh, you did? Oh, good.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about. So fabulous program.
Yeah,
wonderful.
it is.
And that was, another juncture in my life where it was like, and that was really good for me because I did that actually sort of late in my career. But it was super wonderful to take off the teacher hat, and be the student for a while.
Yeah.
That was fabulous. And then my other dear friend and colleague, Jaylene Bennis, who is the creator of Bondage.
Ah.
Now, Jaylene is a wonderful person as well. So you can see how collaborative I am. I love talking about the people who I love working with, and I love working directly with people too. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Jaylene created Bondage, and when I moved out to California, I would periodically look at different advertisings and different websites of colleagues of mine. Sometimes if I found somebody particularly interesting or what have you, I would write them. And so I wrote Jaylene, and like I had done with Cleo, and Jaylene wrote me back, and it just immediately was just a warm and welcoming and easy conversation, and we began to discuss all kinds of things, but a lot of collaborative work. And she created Bondage, and I eventually got certified in that, and then certified as a trainer now in Bondage, and then helped her write the book, Bondage, Kinky Erotic Massage Tips for Lovers. And I just want to say that what Bondage is basically where you put sensory deprivation and sexual exploration, or kink, if you will, with light restraint and massage. And it's one of the most incredibly relaxing and beautiful forms of body work that I think a person can learn to give or to receive. And I'm still very proud to be a Bondage practitioner and colleague of Jaylene's.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't had her on the show. I know quite a few people who do Bondage, and they also say the same thing as you, which is it's essentially a massage with light restraints, and like what you're saying, that is very relaxing. Makes me want to try it one day.
Oh, well, I'd love to do that for you. You know, I worked with a group of Chinese sexologists when they were out here in San Francisco, and I did a workshop with them on kink and BDSM, and it was so much fun. I've always wanted to go to China since childhood, actually. I also recently had an opportunity to work with a beautiful group of people in Los Angeles, couples who were working on deepening their practice. So, working with couples and professionals is definitely an area where I'm leaning more towards these days.
Yeah. So we have a break, and listeners may want to check out the website Bondage. That's BONDASSANG.com.
No N, just Bondage, BONDASSAGE.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on OMTimes Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, and we are with Eve Minax, and we are talking about getting the kinks out. We are doing a sexual exploration, and that's what she likes to call herself, a sexual explorer. She's a long-time kink cultivator, BDSM pundux, and adventurer of intimate relationships. She demystifies BDSM and kink by showing erotic explorers how to be confident, compassionate, and kick-ass partners. And her practice is grounded in Tantra, Taoism, Buddhism, mindfulness, guided visualization, and non-violence communication. And as she mentioned just now, she's also a professor, and she has been participating in and being an advocate for marginalized communities for over 20 years. And she's fond these days of self-actualization through sexual exploration and assisting other sex workers in expanding their skill set. She has been working with the Clos du Bois Academy of SM Arts since 2002, and she can be found in several websites. So tell us a little bit more, Eve, about how people can find you and what's the differences in all the different websites that you have.
Thanks for that, Martha. I know most people have everything just nicely condensed into one package, and I seem to be a little bit more expanded, let's say. But I would start with the SM Arts website because that's the oldest affiliation. But you know what the oldest actually is my very first classic website, which is mistressminax.com. Mm-hmm. And it's in its newest incarnation, which I believe is probably the fourth or fifth incarnation. So it's not the same as it once was. And I do miss the old one, I will admit. The old one, the original one, was very personal to me. It was done by a dear friend of mine who had nothing to do with kink or S&M. On a Dreamweaver platform. It was before they had live journals or blogs or anything, and I created my own thing called the Diary Pages, Minax Musings Diary Pages. And anyway, so that one you won't find that necessarily anymore there, but it's a lovely website, mistressminax.com, and that's more so the classic dominatrix website. Then after that, I became affiliated with Clos du Bois Academy of SM Arts, and that's simply www.sm, S as in Sally, M as in Mary, or sadomasochism, dash arts, ARTS.com. And on that site, you'll find some wonderful, you'll find Cleo's work and mine on teaching small groups, small intimate groups, how to deepen and prolong and create more intimacy in their kink, in their personal and their intimate lives. So we work with professionals as well as private players, both men and women. And so that's smarts.com. And then I'll love to give a plug there to Barbara, urbantantra.com. I think it's .org for orgasm. urbantantra.org if you're interested in where tantra can be deeper and more expansive, especially if you live a more urban lifestyle. And then bondasage.com. On bondasage.com, you'll find myself and Jaylene Bennis and other practitioners all over the world who practice bondage and also teach and train other people how to practice bondage privately and otherwise. And so very proud to be affiliated with all of those websites. And then, of course, last but not least is my Eve Minax website, EVEMINAX, EveMinax.com. And that's more my educator, liberator, sexual creativity coach comes in. It's truly me. I am very deeply and profoundly committed to assisting couples and others, professionals and individuals on their exploration, their journeys, their concerns, their worries, anything that comes along the way, some people really just need that practice. You know, I mean, I think of it really very much as a practice. So some people sit every day, and that's their practice. And other people go to the gym every day, and that's their practice. For me, practicing some form of S&M on a daily basis is my practice, and I like to help others find their practice within that.
Yeah, spoken like someone who really takes her craft and work very seriously, and that's how we get good at anything. We practice.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And we practice something because we feel it's important, and it just goes to show that's the reason why you're one of the, I believe, best teachers out there, because it's not just a passion, it's a calling, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I'm thinking of upcoming workshops. I'm actually taking a bit of a teaching hiatus for the next few months to focus on some personal matters. But I will be teaching with Cleo and with Jaylene over the next few months. Cleo and I have an upcoming erotic dominance workshop for women on the weekend of March 4th through the 6th here in San Francisco. I think we have a couple of places left, and it would be fabulous to hear from anyone out there who might be interested in coming to San Francisco for a 3-day erotic dominance intensive with us. To really intimately explore and deeply, deeply explore where they're at in erotic dominance and how they might want to pursue that further. Then we have a men's intensive coming up in May. I don't have that date in front of me, unfortunately, but it's in the second week of May. But all of them are on the SM Arts website. I am currently doing a lot of writing, but I don't have anything predominantly being published at the moment because I'm wanting to really focus on working with more of my couples and small groups and getting them on a program that will help them work out from the inside out how to deepen their intimacy in their practice. And I had a wonderful experience this last weekend where I was working with a group, and they had been working with another professional, Miss Jaya. Jaya, I'm not sure if you know Jaya. You might
yes,
do.
I do.
You should. Oh, she's wonderful too.
Yes.
And so it was. And I came in as a sort of a finale, if you will, and we did this exercise on a collaring ritual, and it was so important. It was so amazing. A couple of the couples there had huge breakthroughs, and they'd been struggling all weekend, and they'd been really having a hard time. And one of the couples had even considered leaving that morning. They were like, "Oh, we've had enough. We can't do this anymore. We don't even know what we're doing here anymore." And they came up to me and they were in tears, and they said, "You know, this really brought us together. We have a better understanding." And it was so validating for my work. You know, I just feel like when we find those breakthroughs, you know, because I love Dr. Seuss. I don't know if you have much Dr. Seuss over there, but over the places you'll go, you know, so you'll have this breakthrough, and the breakthrough is wonderful. And then, you know, and then there's normal life again. Or, you know, chop wood, carry water, enlightenment, post-enlightenment, etc. But nonetheless, I really love helping people, facilitating some of those breakthroughs for them so they get closer and deeper into their connectedness.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today's show. Are there any last words that you would like to share?
One last thing I would say is because I don't have like a laundry list of things ahead of me, if you would like to keep in touch with what's happening with me, you could sign up for my newsletter, which is at eveminax.com. Just go there and sign up for the newsletter. And I always I don't send them out, you know, willy-nilly, probably approximately one a month. And I'll say whether I'm traveling or what forthcoming workshops or books are being published, or just thoughts and feelings I have around some ideas. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. Those are mostly social media type mentions, including, you know, forthcoming appearances and things like that. but also ideas and shares from wonderful people like you, Martha. I love sharing and collaborating with my colleagues. So I really appreciate you having me here today. I really enjoyed our conversation quite a bit.
Thank you. I've enjoyed having you here and sharing with us your life experiences, what brought you into BDSM, being a dominatrix, and also all the different amazing, exciting offerings that you have. One of the things that you mentioned is also, I just want to emphasize that even though you are an educator, you also provide private sessions for individuals and couples.
Absolutely.
And this is something that people don't necessarily have to feel, if they're shy, that they have or they can't make it to classes. They can engage with you that way instead.
Correct. And, and if they are comfortable with a small group setting that is intimate, that is possible as well. Especially more so for bondage practitioners. I think people are interested in bondage. It's a really fun way to do it in kind of a group environment. But I work with a lot of different couples on a variety of different ways of strengthening their relationship through dominance and submission in particular is one of my specialties, meaning the psychological aspects and the protocol that can go with that. But also some people just want to, hone their skills with bondage or with flogging or what have you, whipping, and we can practice all of those things, domestic discipline, the whole gamut. It sort of depends on where they're at, and I really like individualizing and the coaching programs.
Yeah,
thank you.
At the end of this, it's just having adult choice, really, to me. It's just having different things to make it more fun.
Yes, absolutely.
So
and it should be fun. At the end of the day, it's not just, oh my God, this is so scary and serious. We're doing all this hard work. It's like there's fun in there too. Absolutely.
And one of the biggest things we're getting out of today's show is that we are all sexual explorers, and that kink in some form or another is all fun. It's all good. And tune in to Eros Evolution next week, and we're going to be talking about Tantra, sacred sexuality, and conscious loving. And tune in to Eros Evolution next week.